Good morning. If you're joining us for the first time, we are so happy to have you here. And like I say, we hope you'll join us again. The text reminder that we send out, feel free to forward that to anybody you would like to. There's a lot of people on this call that are associated with the insurance industry, but this is not limited just to that. If you have somebody that's a believer, maybe in a different industry, or you feel like that they would benefit from the call, feel free to invite them on. But I want to start out by just telling you a little bit about a little story. Back in the early 2000s, my wife and I had a couple of photography companies that we started. And one of the things we would do every year in December is we would do Santa Claus pictures. And those of you know me know that I didn't need to have any padding, but I was able to play a mean Santa Claus. And, we had a very elaborate Santa Claus suit that was very heavy. It was something like that you would probably see it, in New York or something at one of the big shops there. Had the wig, the beard, everything looked, real realistic. And we did something a little different than a lot of people do. We didn't set up in the mall. We set up in our studio, and we had a room that we set up that was real homey. And we would invite parents to bring their kids on an appointment, and we would spend about 20 minutes with the kid. And through doing that, it became evident that my wife and I were able to make kids that had special needs feel comfortable. And that was just something that my wife is blessed with doing, and like I say, and God has given me the ability to work with those kids. And so the reputation sort of got out, and we would deal with kids that were autistic, and some that really had never had the opportunity, or they were in a situation that they were overwhelmed in. We would meet with them. Well, after word got out, we were invited to go to our local Catholic diocese has a school that's a training school for any children that are mentally challenged. Some of them have severe birth defects. You name it, the whole gamut's there. And they have kids there that are, anywhere from 3 years old that have been left as wards of the state, all the way up to they have adults that live in group homes that are fairly high functioning, but do have some disability. And so we would go there, and I can remember the first year that I went there, I didn't know what to expect. I was bitten, I was kicked in the crotch, I was punched in the face, and I'm not trying to gross anybody bad. I was slobbered on. It was just, I saw the whole gamut. And I was so exhausted after 2 hours of being in that heavy suit. And for some reason, every year, there would be a warm front that would come through, and it would be 85 degrees. And here I am walking from building to building and group home to group home doing this. And I would just be so exhausted when we would get through. And those kids, you would see them light up, and that would make it worth it. But the people that had asked us to do it, I think a lot of times that I never heard one of them say thank you for doing it. But what we did is we took a picture of every one of those kids so that they would have a picture of Santa Claus, because, like I say, some of them didn't have parents to do that. And sometimes, people forget to say thank you. And I'm guilty of it. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody else, but I'm guilty of not saying thank you a lot of times. And that brings me to the scripture I want us to look at today, our few scriptures. And the first thing we're going to look at is Luke 17, 15 and 16. It said, one of them, when he saw he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. And that, like I said, it's Luke 17, 15 and 16, and that's the NIV version. So to give you a little backstory on that, Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem, and as he entered a certain village, there were 10 men that were there that had leprosy, and they were standing far away. And I think we've talked on this call before about those people that had leprosy. Sometimes they even had a bell around their neck to warn people that they were coming, and people didn't want to be around them. And so he told them to go and show themselves to the priest. And you remember at that time, the priest was the one who said, okay, yeah, you have leprosy, you have to be over here in the leper colony, or you had to make sure you're away from everybody. But he could also declare you and give you a certificate, a life-giving paper that said you were disease-free. And then you were allowed to go back to your homes and be seen in public again. So in the story, Jesus didn't heal those men on the spot. They were healed on their way to see the priest. And you think about those guys as they were probably walking along and their skin started looking new again. How exciting that probably could have been for them. And, but it was not, it was not possible unless that, there was power from God there. Jesus completely, supernaturally, changed those men's 10 lives by telling them what to do, and God healed them on their way back to see the priest. But after that was done, there was only one of those guys that came back. 10 people that had that same experience, but only one responded differently than the rest. And Jesus asked in verse 17 and 18, says, were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except for this foreigner? And you got to remember that the Samaritan, who knew the least about Jesus compared to the other 9 that were Jewish, he was the one that came back. And and you look at that story, and that a lot of times in life we see that parallels, what we have happen to us. Not many people say thank you. Even when we're not doing things to get a thank you, it's still, when you do get that one every once in a while, I know it kind of builds you up, and it's, a reassurance that, you're doing something that means something. And then in verse 19 it says, Jesus said to the Samaritan, rise and go, your faith has made you well. The power of God cleansed him outwardly in his body as he went in obedience, then cleansed him inwardly from sin when he returned to give thanks. So you got to think those other 9 people did not receive that blessing by coming back and saying thank you and have that inward cleansing. And that's kind of how I interpret that. I go back to 2012. That was a time in my job, and which some of you can relate to this. There was a lot of travel involved, and I was flying in from California, called a connecting flight in Houston, Texas, and there was a couple that was sitting next to me, and this is one of those regional flights where that you have an A row and a B and C, and they were sitting in the B and C, and I was sitting in the A, and we started the conversation after takeoff, and the lady was telling me she originally had lived here in the town that I lived in, and we were traveling to, and she had moved away, and about every 3 weeks she would fly back in because she had a son that was at the group home and the training school. And I said, really? I said, I've done some work with them. They have a big rodeo for a fundraiser. And I said, it's a possibility. I might even, know your son from, doing some work with the rodeo. And she said, well, I have a picture of him. She pulled out a picture, and that picture was her son with Santa Claus. Now, she had no way of knowing that was me in that photo. But she said the words to me. She says, yep, this is, that's one of the happiest times that we have a picture of him that when he's so happy. And, I thought to myself, there was no thank you that was said at that time. And she told me, she said, she says, I wished I could be there at Christmas and meet that Santa Claus sometimes, because I truly would like to say thank you. And I just looked at her and I said, well, I don't know who it is that's Santa Claus, but I can tell you that he appreciates, parents like you that realize what's going on. And after I boarded the plane and got off and got in my vehicle ready to go, I thought to myself, how many times, do we do things and we're just like what happened to Jesus, and we only have that one person that says thank you. So I don't know what you're doing right now that people may never thank you for. They may never know that you've done something for them, but I encourage you to keep doing it. What if Jesus had gotten aggravated and said, I'm done with this whole healing business? Out of 10 people, one guy comes back to me and says thank you, and it's the Samaritan. But he didn't do that. And that's not what we're called to do. We're coming up on Thanksgiving, and there's people around you. I want to encourage you also to find those people that you need to tell thank you. What are you thankful for? What are people doing for you that you're thankful for? Tell those people. Let them know that you appreciate it. Some people, they're not comfortable telling people thanks. I don't know if they feel like it's a sign of weakness for them. But try to say thank you. Say thank you to the people when you go through the drive-thru and you get your order. Tell those people thank you. I appreciate what you do. You see if somebody that's a veteran, tell that veteran thank you for what you've done to serve our country. Active military, tell those people thank you. Go to your pastor. Pastors. Everybody assume that pastors in a church just know that everybody appreciates what they do. And there's a lot of assumption goes on there. But tell your pastor thanks for what you do. Because I'll tell you, unless you're involved with a pastor, the pastors do a lot more than we ever know that they do. So at work, somebody has had your back before and they take care of you. Tell them thank you. And so in this season, we're coming up on here Thanksgiving. I just want to encourage you to be that person that goes out and gives thanks to people who have made a difference in your life. I'll close this in prayer. Bill, thank you so much for the day that you've given us, dear God. And I know that I fail miserably sometimes to tell people thank you for what they do to me and do for me, dear God. And I thank you for those people that you put in my life that even though that I fail miserably, they still see, the needs that I have and they're willing to step up. And I just pray that you would be with each and every one on the call, dear God. I just pray that if they're working hard to take care of people and that they get that thank you. I just pray that you would give everyone the courage to go out and tell other people thank you and how that we can make a difference. And we thank you for sending your son to die on the cross so that we can have eternal life, dear God. Help us not to forget about that. Help us not to become so accustomed to it that we lose touch with the agony that was on the cross and what an amazing sacrifice that was, dear God. I lift you up, and I lift everyone up on this call, dear God, to you. And I thank you for them, and I thank you for those who have attended. It's not by accident they're here this morning, dear God. And I just thank you so much for them. These things I ask in your name.